It's been quite a while, and I'll put up another video on why I've kind of been away. Anyways, let's get straight into this PC build for this month. Now, there are several updates from the last PC build that I did back in July, I believe, so it's been quite a while. Prices have fluctuated quite a lot, but on the whole, prices have come down quite a bit for a number of parts. Let's get straight into it. First off, starting with the CPU. There are going to be 3 options, and all of them are 6-core CPUs with varying performance in games and considerations for the future. First is the Ryzen 5 3600. Is a slightly older AMD CPU now, but with an amazing price of $229. It's really affordable, and if you need a decent CPU that has PCIe 4.0 and a motherboard combo on the cheap, this is really the go-to if you're choosing a mid-range AMD graphics card that needs a PCIe 4.0, such as the RX 6600. It's also going to be a little bit more future-proof considering it does have PCIe 4.0. Now, for the motherboard on the AMD CPU, we're going to go for the 149 ASUS TUF Gaming A520 motherboard. It's not too bad overall. It's micro ATX, has 4 slots for RAM here, and has 4 SATA as well. Overall, not too bad a board. It is one of the cheaper boards that I could find for the CPU. Second option for the CPUs is the Intel i5 11400F, which is a bit pricey at the moment, but if it comes down to around $249, it may be worth it. It does perform generally better than the Ryzen 5 3600 in games, and it does come with PCIe 4.0. The problem is that it's a bit pricey compared to the others, such as the Ryzen 5 3600. If you can get the i5 11400 and you only want to play games, then this could be a really good option for you. Now, I can see that First Wave has have them for $259, but it'd really be better if they could come down in price just a wee bit more to make it a bit more better value for money. Not a bad CPU option. For the motherboard, we've gone with the ASUS Prime B560M-K. Again, one of the cheaper motherboards. It's $164 from First Wave or Extreme PC, and it's not too feature packed, just as the other motherboards are not. So again, PCIe 4.0, it has 6 SATA and 2 DIMM slots here for the RAM, and yeah, nothing too special in here. It's just a basic motherboard. Lastly, we got the third option, which is the i5 12400F, which is a newer version of the older i5 11400. It does have PCIe 4.0, which is awesome to see, and is really good price to performance and a really good buy at the moment. It's around $289 from Computer Lounge. It's on special and offers the latest performance from Intel for gaming compared to the other 2 CPUs. The only problem is that for a decent motherboard for this CPU in terms of its VRMs, it will range you upwards of $220. However, the budget motherboards for this CPU are okay. The reason I say this is because on the cheaper LGA 1700 motherboards for this i5 12400F, they just don't have good as VRMs as the more expensive ones and will run a bit hotter. But at the same time, if you need a newer CPU with PCIe 4.0 and the ability to have DDR5 RAM in the future, so you have more years of upgradability technically, then this would be a good CPU for you. You can use DDR4 with i5 12400Fs anyway. For the i5 12400F, a more expensive motherboard that would be really good for it is the MSI Pro B660M-A, and that's around $239 from First Wave or $269 from Extreme PC, so quite expensive. And then the cheaper one would be the ASRock B660M HDV, $166 from PB Tech Micro ATX motherboard as well. So that about sums it up for CPUs. I hope that made sense. Let's head over to the RAM. For the RAM, we've just gone with some budget stuff here. I'm trying to keep it as low as possible. We've gone with the Kingston Fury Beast. It's a 16 gig kit, DDR4 3200, CL16, $104 from First Wave or $105 from Computer Lounge. That's a really good price for 16 gigs, and especially considering that it's DDR4, I think that's an awesome price. The only downside for aesthetics is it has no RGB if you're into that. So if you do want the RGB version of it, there is one. It's a few dollars more. So it's around $109 from First Wave or $111 from Computer Lounge, and it does come with the RGB on the top. So if you guys are into that, you can go ahead and do that. Just stretch the budget a little bit more, about $6 or $4 and you'll be good to go. So either or, both pretty decent. DDR4 3200, CL16, not too bad. So yeah, there's also the Corsair kits that you can consider as well, but whichever is cheaper is probably the best to go for, especially if not overclocking. So let's head over to the storage. Now the storage, I've actually chosen the Samsung 870 EVO 500GB SSD. It's a SATA drive, and I know it's kind of weird to choose a SATA drive sometimes, but I think it's probably the better value for money here. It's just because it has a DRAM cache as well. So it's around $94.95 from Computer Lounge or $93 from First Wave. I think it's pretty decent, especially for its price, under $100 for 500GB SSD with DRAM. It's really well priced, and the alternative to this is the 970 EVO Plus, which has a DRAM cache. It's $115 from Computer Lounge or $114 from First Wave. It's an NVMe SSD, so it is a bit quicker. But I think overall, the SATA one is still perfectly fine, especially if you want to save a little bit. And it's probably the one I'd go for. Now there is the 980 NVMe drive from Samsung, but doesn't have DRAM. So I just personally believe that the 870 was just a better buy in this instance, especially for its price. And if you guys want to step it up to NVMe, I think the 970 EVO is the one to go for here. Now, I always say for hard drives, there is the $78 Seagate Barracuda or Western Digital Blues to go for as well. So around $78 for 1 terabyte. Or you can go second hand and make sure you're only putting on games on it. And guys can get them 1 terabyte for around $30 to $40 New Zealand, generally on Trade Me. Just make sure you're not putting any personal files on there and you'll be good to go. Just make sure it's only games and stuff that you're willing to lose on your secondhand hard drives. Now here's the big part. For the graphics cards, I've gone with the RX 6600, which at the moment is around $399 or $499, either from First Wave or PB Tech. It looks to be a better value for money option here, especially compared to other graphics cards. It's cheaper than the RTX 3060 and performs much better than RTX 3050 or 6500. The RTX 3050 is relatively similarly priced to the 6600, so 6600 is better. And the RX 6500 XT is cheaper but doesn't perform as well. So I think this is the one to go for. I think it's in a good sweet spot at the moment. It's a great option for 1080p gaming. The next option up is the RX 6600 XT, which has gone up in price recently. The RX 6600 XT outperforms the non-XT model, but is around $50 more at the moment. Usually the XT model is around $499, but has increased to around $549, and the non-XT model is usually around $399 to around $450 recently, but has increased to around $499 on average. If you can stretch the budget, I think the XT model will last you a little bit longer, especially for use in the future. Now mind you, it is another $50 over, but at the same time it is a good graphics card, a little bit more compared to the non-XT model for the future. Now graphics cards in order from best to worst: RTX 3060 Ti, RX 6600 XT, and the RTX 3060. Now if you can get the RTX 3060 for around the same price as an RX 6600 XT, at this point I'd probably choose the RTX 3060. One, because it has more VRAM, so technically better for the future, and secondly it has the NVENC encoder, but I know that AMD was working on their encoder and it is pretty on par with the NVENC at the moment, so a little bit of a moot point, but it does have that as well. I guess the RTX system is a little bit more well developed, but at the same time, counterpointing to that is that on an RTX 3060 you're probably not going to be using ray tracing too much. It's probably more for the high-end cards, but anyways, I'd probably still go for the RTX 3060 over 6600 XT, given that the prices are like very similar or exactly the same. Now, lastly is the RX 6600, and I don't really consider anything else from there below even worth buying, so we'll get into that. Keep in mind that the RX line from AMD needs PCI 4.0 to work to its potential maximum performance. Now, I'm not saying you have to have PCI 4.0, but it would be better per se for the future as well. But for this build, I'm gonna stick to the RX 6600 just because it's a little bit cheaper and I know it can go a bit more on special. So it is a pretty decent buy overall. Next, we have a case. It's the Fantex Eclipse P360A ATX mid-tower case, and it's in an amazing price at the moment. It's only $103. It's so good value for money. It comes with a front airflow panel. It's really easy to work with. I built a PC with it before. It's so nice and easy. Even to get the RGB setup, it was super simple. And you can see the prices used to be around $140 or so, and used to be on special for around $120, I believe. So it has a massive sale from PB Tech at the moment. It comes with 2 RGB fans at the front, 2 intake fans, which is awesome to see because they're already there, so you don't have to spend extra money. All you have to do is buy the 1 exhaust fan, which I'll show you in a bit. It's a pretty decent one as well. So overall, I think this is a really good value for money case at the moment. I would highly recommend it at this price. Next, we've got the power supply, and I'm gone with the Silverstone DA650. It's a 650 watt gold certified fully modular power supply. It's $119. It's fully modular, so it's pretty good value for money. Now, I'm not saying it's the best power supply, but we're not putting top tier parts in anyway, so I wouldn't say that this is a power supply that is bad. But if you're going to be putting in any higher tier parts, such as like maybe like an RX 6900, 6800, and RTX 3080 or something like that, and something that needs a lot of power, then I would stay away from it. But for this build, I think it's pretty decent, and considering it's only $119, I think that's a really good buy. Silverstone's not too bad a brand as well, and I read that their capacitor is made in Japan as well, so overall not too bad. Lastly, we've got a fan, the exhaust fan. It's the Inwin Serious Loop ASL 120. Now, I personally own 3 of these fans, and I think they're amazing. The RGB is pretty cool, and they do function really well as fans themselves, which is great, because the RGB is awesome, but I also want to have the airflow working properly. You guys can check my review auto on it, or mini review on it on my channel. If you guys want to see it. Only $18 for one, and I think it's probably one of the best value for money budget fans in New Zealand. It's really good overall. I love its build quality, and it pumps a lot of air, so it can take air in and out of the case pretty easily. Overall, a good option. Now finally, the build totals up to $1,317.77 depending on which retailers you go with. So not too badly priced, especially for a mid-range build. This is not too much of a budget build, but you know, you can compromise here and there or add better parts if you want to. I hope that explained everything out to you guys. And now for some tips and advice on buying. A big consideration is that prices are relatively lower compared to what they used to be last year or a few months ago. However, newer parts and generations of parts are coming out, such as new graphics cards from Nvidia or new CPUs from AMD on their Ryzen lineup using DDR5. There are 2 buying decisions and a bonus one to consider here. First is that you want the latest stuff. If you want the best of the best and what you can get for the money in terms of the newest and latest stuff, my suggestion would be to hold off for more announcements coming soon to gauge performance on newer parts. This is because if you buy today, you're going to be stuck with what you have until you plan to upgrade again. Second is that you want bang for your buck. This is the hardest choice here. My reasoning is that it will be hard to gauge how much prices will fall for current generation's parts, especially when newer parts come out. This is especially true for the mid-range, as that's what we're building with here, as a newer generation of parts for mid-tier parts will take a little while to get released compared to the high-end ones that will come out first. In essence, if you need something today, this build would do you more than good, and really well for the future. However, if you don't need something today, you could potentially save some money for the future as well. Now, here's the bonus advice. The bonus is about inflation. Now, the only reason I talk about inflation is because a lot of people are starting to feel the hit in the pocket. I know I have personally. To be honest, I still see everyone being a bit light on money for a while. So if I were really scraping money together today, I would honestly wait and see if I could score some deals when new parts come out. If I can't wait and I really need something and I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel, or I don't have that much money, at the moment I think the secondhand market is really popping off. I've seen some awesome deals on 6-core processors such as the Ryzen 5 1600 that are going for some crazy prices, like under $100 on TradeMe. I think that's a really good value for money, and if you can top that off with a cheap B350 motherboard, I think you got a wombo combo right there that's going to do you really well in a lot of games. So I'm going to put out a video going around kind of building a secondhand PC soon, so that one will be based on stuff that I already have. Another video that I'm also planning to do is on theoretical builds for secondhand, so going over some parts that would actually be viable. Now, leave me a like and make sure you share it around to see what other people think of that too, so I can see if you guys actually want the video or not. So if you want to see those videos, make sure you go and share and like the video. Now, I hope that helped you out. Check out ystech.org for some more awesome content. But other than that, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.